Okay, December 20th, 2021, and it's my 67th birthday. So this is a birthday video, I guess, and taking Dino for another walk. You see Stripe here, she's Dino's girlfriend. So let's see, which way should we go, Dino? Should we go up this way, see if we see some javelina? Yes, this is all we do. I just got a call from my first friend I ever had back in first grade. And he's my longest living friend, Keith Tim. So, gosh, it's been 50 years that I've known him, or 60 years, I guess. Anyway, he called me from Boulder, Colorado, and filled me in on what he knew about some other friends and all. And we talked about this and that. So it's a nice day out today. Blue skies, no wind, temperature's warming up. It's pretty nice out. So here's the birthday boy. Happy birthday to me. And let's see if we can find some wildlife here. There's a lot of javelina in the neighborhood. And we have a neighbor up here that actually feeds them. So they're usually hanging out at his place. Sometimes when you walk by, you can hear them grunting and snorting and fighting over food, and so it can be kind of scary at times, not knowing what they might do. Come down to the road and see what we're doing. Anyway, 67 years. Born in Washington, D.C., Georgetown University Hospital. My mom and dad and older brother Dave, or the only brother Dave, and my older sister Deb. We lived in Ellicott City, Maryland, which is just outside the northeast outskirts, just outside the northeast boundary of Washington, D.C. My dad worked for the VA hospital there, and back in 1958, he was transferred out to Tucson, Arizona, the VA hospital there. He was chief of dental services there. So that's pretty much all I remember is my life starting down there in Tucson. I do remember living in the apartments we had moved into when we first moved there, the Country Club Apartments, today located on 6th Street and Country Club. It's actually where 5th Street kind of converts into 6th Street there in Tucson. And we lived there, And then parents bought a house out there on the outskirts of Tucson, just outside the Tucson city limits at Craycroft. It was just east of Craycroft. And so that's where I grew up. All through elementary school, junior high, high school. Oh, by the way, next year is my 50th high school reunion. And I talked to my friend Keith about that, and he didn't attend the 45th reunion, but he says, yeah, he thinks he's gonna go to this 50th, and along with some other of our friends that didn't show up on the 45th. It sounds like they might be there also. So it'll be a reunion with them. They all live in different parts. California, Utah, Colorado, and I guess I still have some down there in Tucson. But anyway, here we are at the end of Diamond Drive, the cul-de-sac where we often walk. No, I see I have an incoming call, which usually I ignore all those if I don't recognize them. Yeah, this is the trailhead to get up onto the Circle Trail. It's up in there. One day I'll take that, I go up that the Circle Trail here, and there's an old mine at it. It's not too far down the trail. And I explored in there one time with a flashlight. Went all the way back to the end of it. It's about 120 feet back. And kind of interesting. I think I'll shoot a video in there this next summer. It's kind of interesting just to go in there. Yeah, this is where we stop and turn around. But maybe Dino will want to go walk around the block or something here. So we'll see what he wants to do. It's so nice out. He'll probably want to keep walking. Oftentimes when it's cold out, he just says, okay, that's enough. Let's go home. So we'll just keep walking and talking. Well, you can see I have this down jacket on. It was the first thing I grabbed, and not knowing what the weather was like outside, but I think it's a little too much for this walk. But I'm warm-blooded. I know how to cool off or warm up my body. So I'll just put it in cool down mode here. Usually I don't have too much to talk about when I'm walking, and you know, kind of hard to converse with myself since I already know everything about me. I don't need to know anything more about me. Huh, Dino? So maybe I can fill you in a little bit about my life after high school. Moved up to Flagstaff, went to NAU, Northern Arizona University. Yeah, I started off wanting a major in history, but as a freshman I took a physical anthropology class. We learned about the different apes and different hominids species, early man, which kind of interested me. So I stuck with it. So I went with a major in physical or anthropology. Took all the different classes I needed for the physical anthropology. Then, after 2 years at college, I took off on the road with two high school friends, Andy Hoffman and Gary Allen. And we took off in a 1960 Volkswagen bus. And this was in 74. So we traveled up through Colorado. We took our time. We maybe traveled like 50, 150 miles a day before we just set up camp. We are looking for places to fish, whatever. Yeah, we took, remember we had a speaker, one of these, this box speaker in the back of the van where we kept our pot and other drugs. And so we would just get stoned during the day and travel on the road, see different places. We went up into Colorado. We stopped in Boulder to see a friend of ours, the high school friend, John Bradle. And we had some trouble with the brakes or something, I don't know. He adjusted the brakes for us. So we traveled on past there and up to Yellowstone. Or we did an acid trip on the way up through Wyoming. I remember going into Rock Springs, and yeah, we were pretty stoned. And I remember driving on the highway further north, and gosh, we came across, there's a horse there just right standing along the side of the road, and gosh, I swear we were gonna run into its head as we drove by. But we didn't. Anyway, we stopped in Jackson Hole, or Jackson, Wyoming, whatever it is, yeah. And visited there a little bit and moved on into, well, we camped out somewhere in short of Yellowstone. And we had a tent. And I know there was bears around there, so we put our food up so the bear wouldn't get into it. And that night there was a bear that came by. I think Gary heard it outside the tent. But nothing ever became of that. We packed up and moved on up into Yellowstone. I think we just kind of drove through it. That was about it. Yeah, stopped at a few spots, the hot springs, you know, the Old Faithful, and when we got outside the park, we fished in, I guess it was the Yellowstone River or something like that. And I remember we caught some carp. We didn't get any trout, just carp, and so we didn't want any of that, so we threw it back. Anyway, we continued on. Actually, it was we went into, from there we went into Missoula, Montana, home of Montana State, which was Northern Arizona Lumberjacks Big Sky Conference rival. We found that the town of Bozeman was a lot like Flagstaff. It's kind of nice. So we went into some dorm there, took showers in there, packed up, got some food at the grocery store, and drove through the panhandle of Idaho, followed some river through that. Not sure what it was, but made our way into the state of Washington. They were having the Expo World Fair, or whatever it's called, in Spokane, Washington. I don't think we went into the expo or anything like that. But on the way out of town, we spotted there were 3 girls that were hitchhiking. So we also had 3 dogs with us. Let's see. There's Arlo, Dylan, and I forget what Gary's dog's name was. It was a little black lab mix or something. Anyway, so we picked up these 3 girls hitchhiking, and we stopped for the night at Wenatchee State Park, about in the middle of state of Washington, and got up the next morning, packed up, left. I was behind the wheel, and the brakes went out. We were thinking of John Bradle. Anyway, the brakes went out, and we hit a stump and came to a stop. But that twisted the frame of the vehicle, so that put us out. And so we ended up spending hold on, here comes a car. Come here, Dino, this way.
Hey, Dino, we're matching, buddy.
Come on. So anyway, Andy went into town, and he was looking for a replacement for our van. He ended up buying a 65 Volkswagen bus. Anyway, we spent a week there at the Wenatchee State Park with the girls. They were good company, but we didn't have anything romantic going on with them. It was funny though, one night I I think it was Job Corps or something like that. Busload of kids, delinquent juveniles or whatever. They camped there one night, and I remember we shared some pot with them, and some kid had some angel dust that we smoked, and anyway, so that was about it. They left that next day. So anyway, we headed west towards the coast of Washington, and we came to Astoria, I guess it was. Now these girls, they wanted to go up to Seattle, but we had a different plan. We were going to head south down towards San Francisco. We had some friends living there. So we parted ways. We let them off, did our laundry in Astoria, got back in the van, driving down the coast, and the van quit running. Turns out it needed a valve job. So we happened to be in Seaside, Oregon at the time, and there was a business there called Notorious Motors. And they said, yeah, we can fix it. So they worked on that for, oh gosh, it took them, well, I don't know how long it took them, but it took us a while to earn enough money to end up paying for it and get out of there. But so in the meantime, the three of us, we each had a backpack, we each took a dog, and we hitchhiked individually to Portland. I got a ride by this girl named Judy Buxbaum. She was went to Reed College there in Portland. Anyway, she gave me her number, or at least told me where she was going to school, and whenever we got settled down in Portland, if we ever needed anything, to give her a call or whatever. And so we all met at the park in downtown Portland, Oregon. There's a park that had a bunch of statues in it, I remember. Anyway, so we walked around town, grabbed newspapers, looking for places to rent, maybe jobs to take on. Finally, we found a place in the northeast Portland on Thompson Street, which is in a black community. So we stayed there. It was it was a furnished apartment, but I think all they had was a table and chairs in the kitchen, and a sofa in the living room. There's someone that lived above us, and maybe next door too, I don't know. But anyway, we go in daily, take the bus into downtown Portland, and put our name on the list in manpower, temporary work for the day. And so we did different things, unloaded a semi, and I got a job electroplating at Columbia Plating Company, located on Hawthorne in the southeast. Andy got a job at a marine surplus store in the northwest along the Willamette River, where they would dismantle ships and sell the whatever they could get off of a ship in the thrift store. So he worked there, and I worked electroplating. Gary kind of got tired of the situation, and he arranged for his parents to send him a plane ticket. So he got on a plane and flew back to Tucson. Andy and I stayed there. I think we were there for about 5 months, and we had permanent jobs. I was electroplating, which is kind of interesting, dipping your hands in the nice warm acid baths, with gloves on, of course, and splashing around all these chemicals on the floor, which actually it was a slatted floor, and it would drain through all that stuff would drain through the floor, and I don't know where it went from there, but I think it ended up going into the Willamette River. So we finally made it after about 5 months there in Portland. Notorious Motors said that the van is ready to pick up. So we hitchhiked back out there, Andy and me, and I think we just had the 2 dogs then. Not sure what, yeah. And remember this guy, he had a 54, I think it was a 54 Ford Woody. And he picked us up in that. He was headed out to the coast, and he says, you guys know how to roll a joint? We said, yeah. So he said, yeah, in the glove box he had some pot. So we twisted up a couple of them and smoked those on the way out to the coast. We picked up our van and headed down the coast to San Francisco, where we met our friends. Her name was Beatty, and a friend of hers and ours. Well, they were all friends from Flagstaff originally, Lynn Slazer. So we stayed there a few days. We went to a winery. Remember, we went to the Sebastiani winery, and that was pretty good. And had tasted a lot of wine. Our favorite was the Gewürztraminer Sebastiani. So that's what we'd buy in years later. Try to get that same brand and type. So after a few days in San Francisco, we visited some sites there. I forget what it was, City Lights bookstore or something like that. And then we left, and we kind of hightailed it back to Flagstaff. From there through San Luis Obispo, and then through I forget, through Bakersfield, something down there. Eventually made it back to Flagstaff. And so after having a year off from college, we went back to school, NAU. that next summer, following that junior year in college, I took a summer field school, archaeology field school, run by Charlie Hoffman. And we camped out at I think it was Richfield, something like that. There's some ranch there. And we dug a site there. It was kind of an interesting site. It had, like a wall that kind of ran around the perimeter of the area. And then every so often there are these deep stone-lined shafts. And never knew what they were really for. Charlie thought that was what they would do is pop out of those places and maybe run whatever wildlife off the edge of the cliff there. He mentioned there was a buffalo jump nearby, and he was thinking that maybe some of these rock alignments that whatever game they were chasing would stay in between these and run them off the cliff that was into the Little Colorado River there. So the second part of that summer field school was in St. Michael's Mission up outside of Window Rock in St. Michael's. There's a mission there run by some friars. We camped out on this hill that was nearby, and on the top of this hill was a little Pueblo ruin. So we excavated some of that. I remember the gosh, what was his name? Pat Persinger. He had a Dodge pickup truck with a camper shell on it, and he had a what are they? A dog. It was a German short hair. And one day, the German short hair started barking, and Pat looked up. He was digging in this little Pueblo room. He looked up and his truck was starting to roll down the hill. And he ran after that. He goes, "Ah, fuck, that's my truck." And so he started chasing his truck. Boy, I laughed for years after it, thinking of how he reacted. Anyway, he said he was never able to open that door without having the window down and reaching inside to unlatch it. But this time he was able to yank that door open and get inside and put on the brakes before it went over the edge of the hill there. So that was a close call. Anyway, at the mission, they had a gymnasium there. Charlie Hoffman and I would play some basketball. He was a short guy, but he loved to play basketball, and I think we enjoyed each other's company. Years later, after he had retired and my first wife had passed away, we became real close friends. Oh, Charlie Hoffman, he was he actually discovered the first landing site of Christopher Columbus in San Salvador Island in the Bahamas. Anyway, he was writing up that report on that site and everything they found. They found some glass beads or something, Spanish, I think a Spanish coin or something also at that site. Anyway, he was going to write that up, but he passed away before we ever got it finished. And there was another kid, and there was a colleague of mine in college. Oh, I think his name was Rich London. He says, well, I'll finish that up for him, which I don't think he ever did. Although you can still go into, you can go in Google and search C.A. Hoffman. That's spelled with one N. And I think there's some kind of a report or something about what he found, you know, at this site on San Salvador. But so in my senior year in college, I emphasized both physical anthropology and archaeology, and when I graduated, Charlie Hoffman told me I should put in an application at the museum in Northern Arizona, see if they had any work. So I did that. But in the meantime, after college, I went to work with one of my college roommates, Mark Buzzard. He was working at Western Fence Company. Both of us had worked at American Fence Company down in Tucson, and so we became pretty good fencemen. So he got me a job there at Western Fence Company in Flagstaff. I think it was located on West Street in the Sunnyside district. And I worked there for 2 weeks. It's kind of funny. It was like the last day. The museum actually had called me and offered me a job. And I said, oh, they're doing a dig out there near St. John's, Arizona. Area kind of near where I had that field school with Charlie Hoffman, that first one. So I asked him, well, how much does it pay? They said about $700 a month. And so I said, well, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. So at the time, a good friend of mine was my roommate, Bill Wasley. And his father happened to be an archaeologist at the Arizona State Museum down in Tucson. Anyway, so he convinced me that I should take the job, and so I did. And I went to work for them it was that Sunday. That Sunday I had to drive out to Navajo, Arizona to meet the crew and start a 10-day session. But it was funny, that last day of working at Western Fence Company, Buzzard and I were working in Upper Greenlaw, putting in a fence. And we noticed some flames shooting up over the trees at the base of Mount Eldon. Now, Mount Eldon has a fire lookout tower on top of it. So we thought, well, I'm sure they've seen that. And so we didn't, at that time, there was no such thing as cell phones. Hell, this was back in, 88. on, Dino. So, so that fire spread. Later in that day, we had a job on the other. Oh, pretty good.
Yay! The ice is melting finally.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll see you later.
Okay. That's my neighbor. That's his name's Jason. His dad is Bill Samuelson, but they have this junkyard. It takes up 2 or 3 lots, and so another neighbor refers to him as Sanford and Sons, which is pretty funny. Anyway, so we got on the other side of Mount Eldon, and that fire was cresting the top of the mountain there. It had spread. The wind had spread it up the hill, and it was starting to burn down the other side. And so it turned out to be a major fire that burned a lot of that mountain. And think that we had seen it when it first started, yet we couldn't really do anything about it. Although somebody on the fire lookout tower should have been aware of it. So anyway, that Sunday, I packed up. They told me I need to pack up for 10 days work and head out to Navajo, Arizona and meet the crew out there. There was a mixed crew of some old college kids, Navajo workers, and some younger Zuni kids that were hired on. My boss had worked with some of them before in the field. Anyway, so I was supposed to drive out there and take a couple Navajo that would meet me at the museum and drive them out there. So let's see, I had a Volkswagen Bug at the time. So we got in there. Lee Black sat in the passenger seat. Lee would become a long-time friend of mine after that. And Bert Friday, he was, well, Lee said he's very religious or whatever, so. Anyway, so I on the drive out there, I pulled out a joint, started smoking it, and asked Lee if he wanted some. He said, yeah. So he took some tokes, and he said, nah, Bert Friday doesn't do that stuff. Anyway, Lee became a long-time friend of mine. I worked out there for, from, when was it, June 20th was my anniversary date there, until about December of that year. And we dug up a bunch of sites. I did a lot of the mapping. I was hired because I knew how to use a plane table and Alidade, and I could map all the sites. So that was pretty much my main job, was to map sites. And they separated the crews. I went with my boss was named Sherry Schick. Oh, here my younger boy is just calling me. I'll finish up this video first though. So I went to work with Sherry, and we dug some of our own sites out there, did some digging, and anyway, it all wrapped up in December of that year. And they kept me on doing ground stone analysis from that project. And so I worked on that. I did some other stuff. I helped out our archaeobotanist Bob Gasser. He did flotation analysis where we collect soil samples from features and put those samples in the water, and the seeds are supposed to float to the top. So I'd skim those off and dry them out for him, and Bob would analyze them to see if any of the seeds in there would give us an idea of some of the plants they were eating or whatever. So I did a little bit of that. All the major players, the bosses had quit the museum. One went to work for the Park Service. And so I got in on a little bit of the write-up for that report. It was the Salt River Project Coal Haul Railroad. It was a railroad between Navajo and the Santa Fe line down, gosh, I think it was like, might have been a little less than 50 miles down to St. John's power plant. So I did whatever I could. I wrote some things in the report. Architecture, I think, is something I worked on. And so that job finished up. Then I was sent down to do a few surveys of my own, on my own, just these real small surveys. Remember, the first of these was down around Tucson. One was north side of the Catalinas, and the other were in the Rincon Mountains. I took my dad with me on the ladder. And they drove us to the end of the line, which is uphill, and we just had to walk downhill. It was about 7 miles. My dad had trouble getting down there, but he finally made it. Probably would never go out again with me. So, yeah, I continued, got some other jobs, small jobs to work on, just ones that I would work by myself or with my boss, Don Weaver. Then I went to work with one of our supervisory archaeologists, Ron Yablon. He was doing testing along the I-10 inner loop through Phoenix, where we dug backhoe trenches and looked for evidence, buried evidence at sites of the La Ciudad site. So I did that, and I ended up, gosh, I don't know, doing a lot of other jobs. I did a big job over in Show Low area where we dug some sites, and I put together the report on that. Subsistence and settlement along the Mogollon Rim, 81,000 to 1150 or something like that. Finally, the museum decided they'd do away with their contract section, so we all needed to go find work. I put in applications at Zuni Archaeological Program in Zuni, New Mexico. And Northland Research, who one of the partners was the one that hired me originally at the museum. But he got fired because he didn't complete the Coronado Coal Railroad project. So I went to work for them on 2/22/88. And did a lot of work, continue to work there, and to this day I continue just writing reports up for one of the bosses. Everyone else had quit except for my one boss, Dave Deschamps, his secretary, Amy Barrera, and me are the only ones left with that outfit. But he continues to keep me employed, and he's doing a lot of work there on the Texas border with Mexico, working for the Customs and Border Protection. And he does this legwork and comes back home and sends me the information, and I write up the reports. Anyway, I'm going to end this video now. My younger boy gave me a call. I better call him back. So until next time, happy birthday, Steve.